Welcome to our broadcast today. My name is Trevor, and I'm going to be hosting today's Volusion training, which is going to be centered around this topic that you're seeing on your screen right now, choosing a niche, um, which is very, very important. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about this, how to choose one, what is a niche, first of all, how to choose one, why it's important that we choose one, and some other things that sort of surround that, so that when you guys make a decision on what industry you're going to get into for your website, you feel really good about it. You feel like you're moving in the right direction, and that's important. So first, I want to define it. For those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, when I say choose a niche, you're like, I have no idea what that means. Well, what's a niche? Those of you who are here live with me, define it for me. How would you define a niche market to someone who asks? I think I've got a pretty good definition of it here. Okay, I'm going to list some of these ideas as they come in. So it's, we'll say, something specific, right? Or a specific idea. Okay. Yeah, I like that, Howard. That's pretty good. A defined area or a product. We'll say it's a defined. I'm going to replace area with the word market. It's a defined market or product. I agree with that. Or series or type of product. Okay. It's specialized. Yeah, certainly. Specialized. Okay. Good. It's got a certain type of focus, doesn't it? It's focused. I guess that's another word to use here. It's a focused area. Okay, so these are good examples of words that describe it pretty well. It's sort of like a subset of a market, a certain focus, right? You can get super razor narrow or razor thin and narrow in on a specific idea, or it can be a bit more broad. I mean, there's varying levels of a niche. In fact, let's do a couple of examples. I feel like we can better understand this by just throwing out some examples. So I'm going to throw out an example of a site, and I want you to tell me if this is a good example of a niche or a bad example of a niche. Okay? Here's the first one. Just in general, by the way. Some of you guys have heard of these guys before. This is Cabelas.com. First of all, before you say if this is good or bad, let me tell you about Cabelas if you don't know. Cabelas, you can tell pretty quickly from their site, they do hunting, shooting, fishing, boating, camping, and other sort of outdoor type gear for more of like the outdoorsman, right? First of all, is that a niche? And second of all, is it a good one? What do you guys think? I'd say it's pretty broad. I agree, Howard. That doesn't mean it's bad necessarily, but it is a broad niche. Certainly, it's a niche of some kind, right? I mean, they're basically in the outdoor space. But I agree with what you said, Howard. It's broad, and but that's not necessarily a problem. It's not a super specific niche. No, we'll decide whether or not that's bad or not. But I'm going to say, as of right now, this is okay as a niche. I mean, if you came to me and said, Trevor, I want to do an outdoor gear type site where I want to do camping and outdoor sports products, I'd say, sure, we can do that. Now, would I recommend you do it on the scale that they do, where they've got probably tens of thousands of products, and they do everything from hunting, shooting, fishing, boating, camping, etc. I probably wouldn't have you do it quite on that scope, but you could grow into it. Okay, so that's Cabelas. How about this one right here? This one's called the Vitamin Shop. Whoops. Let me Google it. I forget the URL. There it is. Okay, this is the Vitamin Shop. And as you can see, shortly after getting onto their site, here's their categories. They do protein and fitness, vitamins and supplements, weight control, foods and drinks, aromatherapy, herbs, stuff for the home, so on and so forth. First of all, what's the niche here? Yeah, sure. It's health products or nutritional type stuff, right? Health is very broad though, right? It's hard to narrow health down into a niche. Health is a very broad industry. They're mainly, and they probably, based on their name, look at the name of the site. They're called the Vitamin Shop. What do you think they started out selling when they first got into this business? I think that's probably pretty obvious, right? They probably did vitamins, didn't they? But here's what happened to their shop. After a time, they grew, they got bigger, and they started adding on different elements that were related to the health industry. Is that okay? Sure it is. The example I always use is think about Amazon for just a second. You guys know very well, a lot of you, especially you that are readers, what did Amazon sell when they first got started? They were a giant bookstore, weren't they? That's all they sold books. And as they mastered that and got bigger, they started adopting different industries, and soon they became a giant retailer. Now, I'm not saying we're going to become an Amazon, because they don't really have a niche, right? Their niche is they're a phenomenal e-commerce site that carries everything, but that's not what we would try to accomplish. We're certainly not a company like that. But you get the point. It's okay to evolve into other product lines as long as they're related. So yeah, this is fine as a niche. I wouldn't have a problem with this. All right, tell me about this site right here and explain to me what the niche is. I know nobody here recognizes these guys, right? They're not well known at all, are they? What's the niche? Yeah, everything? Question mark, says Kirk. Boy, it's hard to define a niche on a site that sells electronics, movies, furniture, decor, home improvement products, stuff for kids, video games, food, pharmaceutical and health products, sporting goods, tires, Christmas decor, so on and so forth. Hundreds of thousands of products. Yeah, I agree, Robert. Their niche is sort of like they're a low cost provider of goods. They're a discount retailer. That's their niche. That's why Walmart works. But as a startup, can you become a discount retailer? Can that be your niche? Probably not, right? Unless you've got a tremendous amount of capital. So we don't want to replicate what Walmart does, right? When you're starting your own e-commerce site, and I get this a little bit from clients, everybody's like, "Well, why not? Why not sell a little bit of everything so I can appeal to a mass number of people?" It doesn't work. We'll talk about that here more in just a sec. How about these guys? A little bit of the same, right? Target's kind of a discount retailer, although they're a bit more expensive than Walmart, aren't they? In most cases, they are, I would say. But they sell a lot of the same type of areas, don't they? Shoes, accessories, baby, furniture, patio and garden, electronics, luggage, pets, right? These kind of big discount retailers, they really do sell everything. Target just tends to be a bit upper end, a bit higher end, right? So yes, something to do, something to follow suit with these guys, definitely not. Okay? How about this company right here? Who's heard of Chewy.com? Maybe you pet people out there have heard of Chewy.com. If you look at Chewy here, they've got, it's like a giant pet store. So dog, cats, fish, birds, small pets, reptiles, and then they've got supplies and food and so on and so forth. What's their niche? Pet stuff, right? Stuff for pets. But even this is fairly broad, right? Because they've got so many subcategories within it. Could you create a pet product website and get away with it? Sure you could. But you wouldn't start with everything like they have. You'd never get it off the ground. You would start with maybe a couple of different types of pets. Maybe you're doing dogs and cats. Maybe you're doing fish and reptiles. Maybe an even more specific niche, if you have a good supplier, is you just do fish. That's your niche. And then maybe later on you could expand out like the vitamin shop did. That could work. Right? So, guys, there's varying degrees of a niche. That's the first point I want to make. There are very broad niches, there are very specific niches. Both of them can work, but if you choose a niche that's a bit more on the broad side, like this pet supplies one, make sure you don't focus on every aspect of it right off the cuff. Rather, start with a few sections and grow into some of the others as you want to expand the business. That should be a rule of thumb. Okay, how about this as a niche? How about selling? I had a client once say, my niche, Trevor, I want to be gifts. Okay, so they wanted to sell gifts of all different kinds. Gifts for weddings, gifts for baby showers, gifts for graduation, gifts for Father's Day or Mother's Day, so on and so forth. Is that a niche? And would you do it? Why or why not? What do you guys think? It is pretty broad, isn't it, Janice? Definitely be tough. I agree. If it were me, I would try to narrow it. I think rather than a really general gift site, which I think would take a tremendous amount of work, I think I would start with, why not just wedding gifts? Now you might say that's too specific to just do wedding gifts, but is it? That would represent more of a niche. Or Father's Day gifts, right? You're only doing stuff for fathers, unique products just for fathers on Father's Day. Now, that has its own set of problems, right? Because then you'd be focused only on Father's Day every year, and that would be tough because every other part of the year wouldn't work. But you could maybe say gifts for men. But even that's kind of a broad niche, right? Here's what I would say. I think you could do a general gift site. I've actually seen some really good general gifts suppliers that actually have some really cool gift ideas. So your niche wouldn't be just gifts in general, because gifts in general would be like, I'm giving a gift to my father, my mother, my sister, my brother, my son, my daughter, my grandparents, right? My grandkids. And those gifts could encompass anything. Walmart, in theory, could be a gifts niche type site, right? But maybe instead I find a supplier that's doing like really unique gifts, and that could be my niche. I'm selling extremely unique gifts, not stuff that you would go to Walmart for. You could carve out a little niche that way. But you've got to define what that niche is going to be, right? Because here's the thing, you can't be everything to everyone. And here's the example I always use on that. I want you to just stop and think for just a second. Think about the best place you've ever gone out to eat. Think about it for just a sec. Over all the years, what's the best restaurant you remember you remember going and eating out at? I'm trying to think right now what that would be for me. I like a good steak, and so I'm thinking of a place right now that serves a pretty good steak. But think about it for just a sec. Most of you guys probably have an idea of something in your mind. In the restaurant business, and I'll bet this is true as you're thinking about this restaurant that you really liked, it's very uncommon to be good at everything, right? You have Mexican restaurants, right? You have Italian restaurants. You have sort of the standard American steakhouse type restaurant. You've got Japanese restaurants. You've got Chinese restaurants. What you won't find, and I'm guessing none of you will tell me this, but you're not going to tell me your favorite restaurant in the world was one that actually sold really great pizza. They sold amazing burgers. Their steaks were to die for, right? They had the best fish out there. Their salads were second to none. They had the best Mexican food. In fact, their Indian food portion of their menu was unreal. There's not a restaurant out there that really exists that way, right? And why not? Why in the restaurant industry do people specialize? And it's really the same reason why you need to specialize on your first site. If you don't specialize, you're not going to be really very good at anything. Okay? Who here's ever gone to a buffet? I'm sure everybody can raise their hand, right? What's unique about buffets is that they do sell a little bit of everything, but they're not usually amazing at any one thing, right? And I would make that argument for your site. If you're going to come to me and say, I want to sell consumer electronics, I want to sell organic foods, I want to sell sporting goods and lingerie all on the same site, I'm going to say you're nuts. That's not going to work. You can't be successful in every single one of those areas on one single site, especially being a startup. Just not from a marketing perspective, it's going to be nearly impossible to market that business and do very well and carve out a little area, a little specialty, a little niche that you're going to be good at and make some money on. Now the argument to that sometimes I get from clients would be, well, I don't want to be limited, right? Don't limit me because I want to make sure I can make as much money off of this website as I can. And my counter argument to that is, well, if I don't limit you, you're not going to make anything off of your site because nobody's going to find you because you're not going to be able to market it effectively. You're going to be like that buffet when somebody out there is looking for just really good food. You're not going to be what they want. So that's my advice to you guys. Like, I know a lot of you guys get the concept of specialization in a niche. And if you've got 2 or 3 different ideas that you really want to do, guess what? You can do them. Just do them on separate sites. You're not limited to any number of sites while you work with us. It may take us a while to get up your first site, but after that, we'll take what we learned off of that, and maybe you can have that unique gift site, and then you can have a site all about just selling products for cats, right? And then you can have that other niche site that just focuses on camping products. And as your camping product site grows, then you can add on different lines. You can add on a hiking line, right? And you can add on a boating line, and you can expand out that niche and broaden it. But initially, let's try to stay fairly focused, right? Okay, everybody on the same page there? Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, Lori. I definitely agree with that. Okay, so let me just give you some general advice now. I kind of made a list of just some general things that I think about, just some general tips when choosing a niche. Let me maybe erase some of this that we've got here. There's my eraser. Oh, this is going to take me forever. I want to keep my heading at the top. Got to be a better way to do this, right? All right, good enough. Okay. So just some general piece of advice right here. Actually, you know it's going to be easier? I'm not even going to write them. I'm going to type them for you guys. That'll be far more effective. Okay. General tips, we'll call these. Okay, ready? Number one. So I'm going to say this. Choose your niche based on the availability of suppliers. It's, sometimes I think it's difficult to first say to yourself, I for sure want to sell high-end handbags and declare that as your niche, and you're sure that's going to be what you want to do. But then you go out and you look for suppliers, and then guess what? You can't find any. Right? It's probably happened to some of you guys when you've been trying to choose a niche. Don't start with what I want to do. Start with first what's available. Sometimes it's nice to go out there and see if you can't find a list of available drop shipping suppliers. See what's available first. It's okay to come in with some ideas. I mean, certainly when you're thinking about your site, brainstorm some things that you'd like to do, but don't get married to anything right off the bat. Because if you get married to wanting to sell Coach purses, but you can't find a drop shipper for it, you're going to be disappointed. So say to yourself, well, I'd be interested in purses in general. Let's see what's out there. And if you can't find anything in purses, have other options available, because really we're limited to what kind of suppliers are out there. And in the drop shipping space, there's not drop shippers for everything. Sometimes the only way you can get your hands on Coach purses is if you own a physical storefront and you do $100,000 of sales every month from that storefront, then Coach might work with you. But otherwise, as a startup website, you probably can't use them. So you got to keep that in mind. Second thing, demand is good for everything online. Okay, and what I mean by that is sometimes you guys will say to me, well, wait a minute, I don't want to just choose anything. I want to choose something that has tremendous demand, something that tons of people are looking for. I'm just going to stop you there and say everything has sustainable demand. Certainly enough sustainable demand to keep you guys very happy financially with what you can make. There's not an industry you could choose that I would scratch my head and say there's probably not enough money out there for you to make money. The internet is just so vast now that that's the case. Now, years ago, when we used to teach choosing a niche, we used to do a lot of demand research, and we used to do a lot of competition research as well. And so I guess I should probably add number 3 while I'm talking about this. Competition exists for everything, okay? There's a tremendous amount of demand for everything out there, and there's a tremendous amount of competition for everything out there. You are not going to find something with high demand and low competition. It just doesn't exist anymore unless you were inventing your own product. It's just you're not going to find it. You're going to find things that have high demand and high competition, and that shouldn't scare you off, because look, you're in our training program for a reason. We're very confident in what we teach our clients in terms of marketing. High competition doesn't worry me. If anything, I see dollar signs, because I think to myself, if there's a lot of competition, there must be a lot of people spending money. that's a good thing. So this idea of you need to research the demand and the competition, put that in your back pocket and just assume that everything has good demand and everything has a lot of competition, and you'll more quickly be able to choose that niche. Okay? All right, let me see my next one here. This is a good one. Number 4. I get a few of you that say that are so paralyzed by the idea of making a decision here because you're worried if you choose one direction over another that this could be like the pivotal point in your business that's make or break. It is not. Choosing your niche is not going to necessarily make or break your business. In fact, as I've thought about this over the years, and if I were to survey all of my very successful clients, it's not because they got lucky and they chose the right niche at the right time that they're making money. This is not the case at all. The reason why they're making money is they chose a niche with plenty of demand and plenty of competition, which is basically everything out there. They chose a niche that had existing suppliers that they could use or that they could get access to later. And then what they did, what actually made them successful, is they executed a really good quality marketing strategy. And they had a really good quality site. If you've got a good site and a good marketing strategy for something that people actually want to buy, you will make money, right? Let's not overthink this. So I promise you your success in this business and on your website isn't going to be the choice of your niche. It's going to be about the execution of your marketing and your website. Okay? Keep that in mind. Let's see. This is a good one. This kind of goes along with 1. I'm going to make this a subset of 1. We'll call this 1A. Suppliers for your niche may be weak, and I'm going to put weak in quotes. And I'll define that. Okay? Suppliers for your niche may be weak at first. It gets better. Okay? Remember, let's all remember, you're a startup. In the eyes of a lot of suppliers, you're kind of a dime a dozen because they work with startups all the time, and probably many don't work. And maybe that's because they're not in a coaching program or they don't have the motivation you do or whatever the case may be, but a lot of startups fail, right? Which means sometimes it's tough for you to get like these really great initial drop shipping suppliers in a niche, and I don't want that to bother you guys and keep you away from the niche. I'm trying to think of an example of one lately. I can't think of anything specifically, but in the past I've had clients that have found a supplier for a niche that they thought would be really cool, but the supplier really wasn't that great. Like they had a few of the product lines that they wanted, but it wasn't everything they wanted. And as they looked at the prices, they felt like they were a little on the high side, and the policies weren't necessarily the best. But it was still in a good market with good demand, probably quite a bit of competition, which is fine, like we talked about. And they had a supplier that was willing to work with them. And the only thing that was stopping them is they just didn't think their supplier was good enough. Well, that's okay. And I guess the point I want to make here is your suppliers won't always be the best at the start. I don't care. We can still move forward in that direction because if we set up a good quality site, we put products on that site from the supplier and maybe supplement with some retail drop shipping items, and then we focus on marketing and execution, and this site ranks high in Google and starts to get found, well, guess what? The tables have turned, and all of a sudden you're going to get suppliers that are going to want to work with you that would turn their nose up at you in the past. Or you're going to get random emails out of blue with somebody being like, hey, I've got this really great product. Here's a picture of it. We manufacture this stuff. We'll give it to you at a great price. We'd really love you to feature it on your site. That happens all the time to me after I've gotten things going. Before that, I struggle a little bit. So keep that in mind. I won't belabor that point anymore. And then my last point as far as choosing a niche is some of you will have maybe 2 or 3 that you're trying to decide amongst, or between, I suppose, if you're trying to decide between 2. Just remember, we can do other sites. So pick one, go with it, execute our training, execute our marketing plan and a good website. Once you're done with that and you're up and you're making money, if you have the time and the energy and the ambition to start a second one, go ahead and do it. Set up that second site. It'll be much easier than your first. And if your first one's on autopilot anyway, you can set up the second one and build that with your extra time. And you then can access different niches. And you don't have to be married to just one area. It's not like if I choose selling aquariums for fish today and I make that my business that I can't get involved in other businesses in the future. That'll just be your first one, okay? So these are just some good general tips when deciding on your niche. I can honestly tell you, though, the big one is going to be just the availability of suppliers. So make sure you've at least got a supplier out there that's willing to work with you. The better suppliers will come, I can guarantee it. Don't get caught up on choosing a niche. It is not the be-all, end-all of your business. The execution of your website and your marketing is what's going to determine how successful you actually are. All right? Okay, guys, I think that's all. So hopefully after seeing this, you now understand why and it is so important to have a niche, what one is, first of all, why it's important, and then how to go about choosing one. And then I made that list of tips there for you guys, hopefully to alleviate some potential concern and pain that you might have as you're trying to do this with your coach. All right? Okay, well, with that being said, let's finish up. I'm going to close off the recording here if you're watching this recorded. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.